Huh. So, I guess the Canucks are just gonna start winning now, is that the case? I needed myself a break today, though. After all the stuff that we had made videos about and shorts about on the trade deadline and its festivities, admittedly, a slower deadline compared to what we've been used to seeing over the past few years. But with that said, we got some Canucks stuff to talk about, a game against the Chicago Blackhawks, and the verdict as to how Patrik Allvin handled this trade deadline. Now, let's forget the game for a second. I know there's a lot to talk about there. The Canucks won 6-3. They scored a lot of goals. Oh my gosh. Brock Besser, we love you, buddy. Even though maybe some of us would have preferred to see you get traded, but who cares? Besser wasn't traded. Teddy Blueger, who scored in this game, wasn't traded. And it turns out he, alongside of Evander Kane, may not have actually garnered the market that Canucks fans were expecting. Patrik Allvin made 2 trades today on trade deadline day. David Kampf shipped out for a 6th. Lukas Reichel shipped out for a 6th. And when it comes to the market for Blueger and Kane, 2 of the remaining UFAs that Vancouver has had and been shopping the past few weeks, Patrik Allvin said it himself. There was just no market for these guys. Nobody asked for them. And while it might be disappointing to hear that, while it's true that Teddy Blueger has had a pretty big heater this season, I do think I see where it's coming from. For Evander Kane, it's like, hey, all you gotta do is watch the guy play in a Vancouver sweater, and you see that he brings very little value to the ice. Point production be damned, this is a guy who kills the play more often than not. He passes to nobody. He shoots the puck so wide that it ricochets out of the zone. He doesn't stand up for his teammates as much as you would have expected. He doesn't fight as much as you would have expected based off of the rep that he does have. He's not a needle mover in the way that we thought he was when he was with the Oilers the previous few years. And anybody who has evaluated Kane by watching him thoroughly on the ice will say that. Meanwhile, Teddy Blueger, not that Teddy Blueger is a bad player or anything of that matter, he's fine. But his Olympic showcase wasn't particularly great. He had spent most of the season on the IR, and when he came back, yes, he started scoring points, but he was fresh, he was healthy, he was playing off against guys that were quarters of the way through the season and were already fatigued. And when you look at other centers around the NHL, like Scott Laughton, for example, getting a 3rd-round pick, it really boils down to the fact that left-handed centers on this market just weren't all too valuable, especially left-handed depth centers. Like, David Kampf got a 6th, but he had a good Olympic performance, and he was providing pretty decent play for the Canucks most of the year. Teddy Blueger was out for a good chunk of that time. But Teddy Blueger has a Stanley Cup. Yeah, that's true. But he only played 6 games in that cup run for Vegas, so I don't necessarily know if it's fair to say that he was an integral part of that team winning. I don't know. All things considered, I think the Vancouver Canucks did about as well as they could have in this market. If they wanted to force a Besser or a Pettersson deal or whatever, maybe you could debate that that's possible, but they got some of the trades they needed to get done. They got Tyler Myers off the books, which nobody was expecting. They traded Connor Garland in a package that I'll admit was maybe a little less than we had thought, but when you consider the fact that he is on a 6x6 that kicks in next season, he's 30, and the contract that he's going to have has full trade protection, and he hasn't scored a goal in 20 games, the fact that this is a bad year for Garland means that the trade was going to be a risk for whomever took him on. And getting a 2nd and a 3rd is better than potentially getting locked into a deal where only Garland can choose where he wants to go. At the end of the day, though, Canucks got a lot of picks. Myers, Sherwood, Kampf, Reichel, Garland, all these guys sent away. It's a new era in Vancouver. And with that, let's start talking about this Chicago game, which just wrapped up on my television screen over here. The Vancouver Canucks! Cue the parade! They've won a game! I know some of y'all might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, this could be bad for the tank. Well, the Canucks are still 10 points back of the Blues and the Flames. So, unless the Canucks start to go on a 5-game tear, and both St. Louis and Calgary stop winning, period. Actually, no, when you think about it, Calgary just lost Kadri. St. Louis lost Justin Falk and Braden Shen. Oh boy. Yeah, maybe this actually is going to be a pretty tight race. Who really knows? But let's not assume the Vancouver Canucks are going to continue winning like they did today. 6-3 final score against the Chicago Blackhawks with a number of guys getting multi-point games. It's a pretty good day for Vancouver fantasy hockey people. Brock Besser gets 2 goals. Max Sasson gets a goal and an assist, as does Jake DeBrusk. Elias Pettersson had a point today, an assist. He also had a wide-open net that he was able to shoot a puck at, but he ended up missing and didn't score on that. He had 2 shots, though. So finally, EP40 starting to get the puck towards the goal here. And on D, you had points out of Wilander, Hronek Buyum, and Marcus Pettersson, who had himself a 2-assist night. Goals were coming like crazy. The Canucks opened the game up with a 3-1 lead in the first 6 minutes. It's almost like Drew O'Connor, Jake DeBrusk, Teddy Bluger, they were relieved to see themselves not get traded, or maybe in Bluger's case, maybe he was kind of pissed off. He was like, oh darn it, I'm still here. Well, time to take it out on this hockey puck. Remember when Teddy Bluger was close to coming back earlier in the season, and there was an interview that he did where he spoke about, like, yeah, I want to be able to be on a good team, and we got to get good habits here in Vancouver, and then he spoke out about how the Olympics is going to be a good opportunity for him to get back under him and to get his value showcased, and for a team to maybe, he didn't say it directly, but you could tell, like, the energy in the commentary he was making. It was like, if Teddy Bluger can play well enough at the Olympics and garner interest to get a trade to a good playoff team, he wouldn't be dissatisfied with that. He'd actually be pretty okay with it. So, Teddy Bluger, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's upset that he's still a Canuck, but like, I do think the possibility is there. I don't know. But he ended up scoring here. Really nice net front goal. Jake DeBrusk and Drew O'Connor each tipped the puck in as it was shot towards the front of the goal as well. That's the best goal scorer on the Canucks, Drew O'Connor, coming out to play here. Meanwhile, Ilya Mikheyev brought things back. 3-2. Frank Nazar, the third, got the third goal for Chicago in the second period. Before the third period started out with Brock Besser getting a bat-in on the power play, assisted by Linus Karlsson, and guess what? Jake DeBrusk. Karlsson threw the puck towards the front of the goal, it deflects off the goalie and up, and Brock Besser, he's watching some of that World Baseball Classic, everybody. He bats the puck out of midair and gets Vancouver on the board 4-3. Add on 2 empty netters, one by Max Sasson where he chips the puck around the defender and chases it down into the offensive zone to bury it on the side. It's a beautiful play. And then you have Brock Besser, who ends up getting the long wrist shot from range, assisted by Marco Rossi and Hronek, capitalizing on a Connor Bedard to Frank Nazar turnover that ends up in the corner. 6-3 Vancouver is the final score in this game. The Canucks had 22 shots, the Hawks had 23. Nikita Tolopilo gone out there and made some saves over here. He wasn't able to stop the kicked-in puck by, I believe it was Landon Slaggert who got that one? Not too sure. But there was a very blatant, obvious kicked puck motion in the third period that would have brought the game within evens, but it did not. Vancouver walks out of Chicago with another victory. I think that's their 8th in a row against the Hawks in the United Center, something like that. Kind of a miracle considering how bad the Vancouver Canucks have been the past few years. But I guess you can't lose them all, right? So with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel, firstly, about Vancouver's trade deadline? I didn't want to make like an entire video about it because I was like, yeah, I ended up taking a nap, and the game started at 5:30 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast, so I was like, you know, there's not really much breathing room here. But nevertheless, thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about the Canucks versus Blackhawks game? What are your thoughts on the actual trade deadline activities of the day. Do you think Allvin could have gotten more? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.